The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Wednesday, 20th of May.
The FujiCast.
Hello, welcome to the FujiCast Daily for a limited time whilst half the world has been in various lockdown and distancing, usually, of course, out every Monday. It's a show about photography, a show about community, and yes, a show that reflects our love for Fujifilm kit, though you can shoot anything you like in any genre too. Hi, Kev, how are you?
I'm okay.
Good.
How are you doing?
We had a big shock for a second, didn't we? Because Skype started to play up. We thought, no, we've got this far through, and now don't let us down, Skype.
Yeah, but we're here. We're here. We fight for another day.
We do. A few things before we start, Kev. By the way, today is the fundraising print sales day at fujifund.org, isn't it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Big mention for that. Yeah, head over. So just run through what that is again so everybody knows what it is. 16 Fujifilm X-photographers, isn't it?
Yeah, 16 Fujifilm X-photographers, or 14 Fujifilm X-photographers and 2 X-photographers.
Right, yep.
So Ian Palmer has set this up, fujifund.org. It's nothing to do with us directly, although we're kind of giving him a shout out. And he's got a frame print from each of us who are involved, and they are going to be sold. And I believe it's on a kind of first come, first serve basis. And the launch is today. So go over to fujifund.org. Spend some shekels. All the money goes to hungry children and the COVID appeal.
Now, is there one print from each person? That's why it's limited, or are there several?
Yeah, it's just one.
So that starts today. It's a Wednesday, so again, we've got one of Kev's books you should really buy when it's safe to spend money on stuff again feature. What one have you chosen today?
Oh, it's a good one today. I'm not going to tell you until we get to the feature, though.
Right. But next thing on the agenda, it's like a meeting. The Daily Show. Now, we've been running now for 60-something days. You're better at this than me. How many days is it now? You normally manage to add it up on the fly.
We have done, so far today, will be our 63rd day in a row.
63rd, okay. So we started in March, late on, as the world began to shut down. Couldn't quite believe it was all happening. Personally, I just watched my business seem to go into fast rewind with no way to turn the button off. Do you remember how you first felt, Kev, when it?
Oh, it was horrible, wasn't it?
The first 2 weeks, though, I remember you were particularly down about it. But then a kind of new norm has sort of descended upon us all gradually, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think that, well, for me at least, it was a case of dusting myself down and. Gemma found me once sat at the bottom of the stairs just rocking with my hands in my head.
Really?
And my head in my hands, I should say.
Yeah.
And she gave me a right talking to. And and it was just dusting down and going for it. The fact is, we are both hugely exposed to this in terms of financial liability, business. Yeah. And there are lots of other industries also, of course, and so there's lots of people in the same boat. We still don't know how that will pan out. Both of us, I think, we've been as candid as possible in terms of how we've dealt with it financially, and we've both had to, reach out to the banks and all that kind of stuff. Neither of us wish to do that, but
Well, I have 2 weddings in July, 2 in August, still in the calendar, which haven't yet gone, but I'm expecting those to move any day soon. I don't expect to work properly until autumn. I hope I'm wrong. Some say early winter. I really hope I'm wrong, but we always said that as the restrictions started to lift and people went back about their daily stuff, we'd probably have to, or indeed want to as well. Sort of go back to sort of working on our businesses. But before we talk about what's next for the show, how's it been working from home?
Oh, I've loved it.
Have you?
Gemma's kind of like, do you not think you could go back to the office,
Yeah, well, she said that about 3 weeks ago, didn't she?
Yeah. I love it. Sitting here in my little desk that Gemma made me in front of the window, wave at the usuals, the locals every day, walking past.
Would you happily carry on working? I mean, obviously you want to get out to photograph, but in between, would you happily work from home, or are you looking forward to getting back to the Mullins office?
I need to go back because I can't do any kind of filming. I can't do any YouTube stuff. I can't, I've got a lot of portfolio reviews to get through and things like that. And whilst I can do this from home, it does mean that the rest of the family have to scarper for an hour and a half. And so, it's not great. However, I just love the fact that I can go and sit in the garden with the kids and, and do whatever just totally randomly without thinking about it. So, my personal plan is I'm going to stay here until, I don't know, I think maybe until I'm about 65.
You should have paid that loan off by then. I did. You mentioned YouTube. I don't know how the people do daily shows on YouTube, because a daily podcast or film, big commitment. To make half an hour of decent content, hopefully you find it decent, It takes about 4 hours of our combined day once you factor in the odd interview, the research, the question wrangling, the editing, the artwork, the uploading, the social media, and. But I've absolutely loved it, Kev.
Yeah, I have also. And do you know what our reward was?
Well,
the latest review. The last review we got on Apple iTunes was 1 star.
Oh, no, but that was Klimping, and he always says stuff like that.
Gone Downhill.
I know. The trouble is...
I feel like I have to call it out, though, because it drives me absolutely insane. Just listen to one episode on web pages.
Yes. Yeah.
And another on what seemed like listeners just asking personal questions.
Yes. And I'm not... Yeah, he did. I think he lost the context of the whole thing, because if you look at the last 63 days... There's been interviews. Well, at one stage we had an interview with Martin Parr just the other day. I mean, that was a big scoop, and that was really interesting. We spoke to John McCarthy about isolation, a man who spent 5 years at the hands of a terrorist group in Beirut. I mean, that was all about isolation. We've heard literally dealt with hundreds of questions that are to do with photography, with personal issues, with mental health, through to some of the... And I think he's picked on just a couple of episodes, and he hasn't really placed enormous context, which I thought was a shame. But then, you're allowed to leave. You're allowed to leave. But to be honest, he's been in before, and I think he's like those two Muppets that return sometimes just to be annoyed with us.
We're like the two Muppets.
Do you think so? Maybe. Do you know what? Klimping, if we all... that's the name he has each time. If we all met up in pub, mate, we'd probably have a right old time. I'm sure we would. So, but, you're allowed to moan as well. So, with restrictions beginning to ease, it's time to invest a bit more time back in our businesses, a little bit more full-time. I have a new podcast that I've been working on to announce next week, and I'm still to set up that website for the photography part of the business as well. Got some commercial projects to film. What have you mentioned there, Kev? You've got a lot of portfolio reviews to do. What else have you got on the YouTube stuff? I know you're itching to get on with that.
Yeah, well, that's it really. Anything other than taking pictures, I'm going to be doing some of that stuff.
So the dailies have done what they do, I think, in terms of it being our passion project. We both commented at times, didn't we, that if we could do this as a living, we'd have loved to have just carried on going. But apparently our mortgage companies, Kev, aren't photographers. And they're kind
they don't understand.
Yeah, they don't get it, do they? And they're kind of insisting. Maybe Klimping works for them. And they're kind of insisting that we start paying them back soon. So it goes back to every... Do you want to announce the date? It goes back to every Monday from...
Oh, my word. No, that is a challenging question, so I have to click on that.
We talked about this earlier, Kev.
And it goes all the way back to
Monday the...
19th of March.
No, no, you didn't get me, Kev. What I meant was it starts to be Mondays only again from Monday the...
I see.
You're doing the announcement, Kev.
Monday the 8th of June.
Oh, dear, we got there. So yes. The last daily show is Sunday the 31st of May. And then we're going to take a week off to make sure that the first Monday show back is a real bumper corker show where we hope, I hope, we'll even be allowed to have Kev back in the studio once again.
Yeah.
Dear.
That's right. The last daily will be in exactly 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 days' time.
Yeah.
So you have 12 days left to put up with us.
Of the dailies, yeah.
You can pick and choose what you want to listen to. and the guy that emailed me and had a right go at me saying, "You're slagging off film photographers, you are. Don't like it."
Kev, you got to listen to the 99% of people that like the stuff and not the one.
The thing is, I wouldn't mind if people were right. I wouldn't mind if I was slagging off film photographers. I'm fine, but I wouldn't, and I don't like it.
I know. Well, you promised me one thing when you get back to the studio, though. Can you start doing the show with your trousers back on again?
Yeah. I'm going to find it really difficult to drive to your place with a gin and tonic in my hand.
Yeah. Oh, dear. Right, should we do some questions? Then we got the book. Let's very quickly have a website one, because we had a whole... Klimping, this one's for you, mate. This is from Mark Neal. I'm in the middle of a website rebuild, so this is handy. So question, what is a good number of... I think this is a bit of a how long's a piece of string question, but what's a good number of images to display per gallery on a photography site? Should you include a blog or news feed? In fact, let's take the images per gallery first, then we'll deal with the blog and newsfeed. I think it's about how long is a piece of string run, that, isn't it, Kev? Really? It depends how much stuff you've got.
Yeah, I mean, it does depend. You need to bear in mind things like the page speed load and all that kind of stuff. But I actually don't like galleries.
No?
From a business point of view, I much prefer to have a page that discusses the pictures.
Yeah.
So, includes a lot of pictures. This picture is a bride doing this. This picture is a baby being born, whatever, etc. Rather than just a whole load of pictures that people scroll through. Different industry sectors will approach it differently. If you're just a landscape photographer, for example, then differently. But yeah, I don't think there's any particular numbers. You just need to be careful that it's not overloaded and curate your images well. Be brutal. Don't show stuff that you're not 100% sure of.
Absolutely. Should Mark include a blog or news feed? Yes, is the answer, definitely. You've got to keep that content flow, haven't you?
Yeah.
What's your view on personal projects on your professional site? Oh, that's a good question. What do you think, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, depends on the weighting, really. I always say that if you're trying to sell weddings, you don't want people stumbling across your website and seeing pictures of your personal beehive collection or whatever. Yeah. So make sure there's some kind of relationship to it. But people do also want to see that the personal element of you and that. However, I do kind of think that Instagram is the best place for that kind of thing, and people will jump over to Instagram to see the pictures of your food and your cats and everything else.
Talking of Instagram, at Spocky, SPOCKY. Asim Khan from Geneva. Hi guys, continuing to love the Daily Dose. Honestly, the only podcast I listen to every single day. I have a couple of questions about street photography in these pandemic times. Is it not going to be a tad difficult to go out and meld into the crowd now with anything less than a 35? Would a telezoom be or lens like that be the way to go now? Asks Asim from Geneva. Well, I don't know. Would it?
It's impossible to tell, isn't it? Well, nobody knows. I'd hate to think that will happen, but yeah, could do. And who knows?
What are you going to do with your street work? Are you going to go back to... mind you, you're not really an in-the-face street photographer, are you? I've never seen you being intrusive at all on the street.
No, I don't. I prefer to just kind of look for the light and hang around and wait for something interesting to happen in it. I don't really go and throw myself in the mix of things. So, I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be an interesting take on things as things start to become more normal over what will probably be years. The people will be wearing masks initially, then they probably won't, and maybe we'll have different flow of traffic through the town and all that kind of stuff. That's the stuff to be documented, isn't it, when we're allowed to?
Richard Pease from Denver. I just wanted to offer a word of thanks to the dailies. I'm a non-Fuji shooter. I quite enjoy the discussions you have on all things photography. I'm an officer in the Sally Army across the pond, and over the last 2 months I've been part of a tireless effort to serve those affected by COVID-19. Each morning as I drive to work, your daily show helps me take my mind off the myriad of tasks. I think it's important to hold on to the concept that it will pass. So thank you, Richard. I think it will. Tony Bowman. Basically, I'm looking for a smaller camera, chaps, for street and general travel photography. So I don't want to drag my full frame around. I've settled on 35mm focal length. I like the idea of a fixed lens camera, though I wonder if I might regret that later on. First camera I started looking at was a second-hand X100F, though I do like the new features on the V. What are the differences between the F and V, Kev, before I ask his question?
Well, I don't have the V, but there's a new sensor, of course. The lens has been updated for the first time in its history. 4K video, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, do you know what? I've always been really impressed. I've got the F, I haven't got the V, with what comes out for filming. I've shot quite a lot of B-rolly kind of stuff using the X100 F, that is, and I think it's enormously good for stuff like that. So with the V shooting 4K, we're away, aren't we?
Yeah, for those that want to. Yeah.
The other option, he says, is an XT30 with a 23mm 1.4, as at least if I want later on I could purchase other lenses. I'd be interested in your thoughts. So an XT30 or an X100F, Kev?
They're very different cameras. It's a little bit like saying, do I need a truck or will an SUV do? If you're happy with a non-interchangeable camera, then X100 is perfect, fits in your pocket, goes everywhere. It's built like a brick, and in terms of its construction. XT30 is probably a little bit more fragile in terms of its construction, but then you can change the lenses.
Mind you, if you're thinking of just getting an XT30 with a 23mm lens, I'd just go for the X100. I would, personally.
I would also, yeah, absolutely.
Steve Lynham, Kevin, when you're shooting, it's a lot about street today, which is good. When you're shooting street photography, do you take some or most of your photos with a camera raised to your eye, or do you mostly shoot from the hip? Do you use the Fuji camera app on your phone to trigger the camera?
Never used the app, ever.
Why don't you use the app, by the way? Is it because I find connectivity sometimes an issue?
I don't. Connectivity can be an issue, I think, although it seems to have sorted itself out from the earlier versions. To me, that's not fun. I don't enjoy that. The enjoyment for me is the actual handling of the camera and everything. It's very easy to just put your camera on a restaurant table and then look at your phone and take pictures. I don't know. It's not. I just don't like that personally. And I do typically take shots mostly from the hip. And when I say the hip, it's anywhere between chest, breastbone, and belly button type thing.
So ideally then, what sort of camera settings are you using? I know it depends upon the light of the day, but there must be a kind of an average that you're used to working with.
I mean, you want to be looking, if you're zone focusing, you're looking at a wider kind of aperture. So anywhere between f5.6, f8, pretty quick shutter speed if you're looking for capturing people's reactions and movement and stuff. But however, I typically, when I'm shooting by myself at least, I'm looking for the light first. So I'll find a pool of light, or I'll find a shadow or a shade, or something like that. I'll meter for that light, I'll lock it in, and then I'll just put the camera down and, I'll pre-focus on the area that I'm waiting, and I'll put the camera down to my chest level and then just wait for people to wander into that area. So it could be a very narrow aperture, it could be at f2, or it could be at f8 or 11. So, yeah, I mean, it's different people do different things. I think that I'm much more considered in my approach rather than just running around and snap, which people do and they make amazing pictures from. And it's the same with weddings, isn't it? I typically don't do that, but other people do, and hopefully we both get the pictures we need.
Steve also asked a question of the film that I made with Giles Penfan, which is on my YouTube channel. How did you arrive at shooting him just in a pool of light? If you haven't seen the film, this is of Giles talking about his, not just his military portfolio, but other stuff that he'd made. We went to a barn in the middle of the winter. It was freezing cold. And I just set up a couple of cameras, one looking down from a higher, I think it was about maybe 5-6 meters in the air down onto the table, and the other one across so that you could get a sort of tighter angle on the picture itself. And yeah, just one light. I think often just a couple of lights around it just to maybe bring a little bit of light on the corrugated sheets in the background. But generally, I think people can complicate shoots too much. And I've been looking at a lot of stuff of late. Platon's a good example as well, isn't he? Somebody who uses one light makes life, he might use some black flags, but essentially he uses one light. And I don't think you need to overcomplicate that, do you? Sometimes?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, it's creative, isn't it? You can do whatever you need to do. But that film you made of Giles is amazing. I love that film.
Well,
we'll put that in the show notes.
It's made by him in many respects because of I went to that particular interview, if you like. I've known Giles for years, so I did think, how am I going to interview him? But I've written a load of considered notes and questions, and it just started rolling, and he went, and I just shut up. I engaged that thing where you think, right, well, they're saying such a lot here. Just let him go, and he did. It was one of the finest monologues I think I've seen somebody present. Right, one more, then we'll do the book. James Sauls, good evening. I've just booked a portfolio review with Jeff Askoff, and I'm both extremely excited and petrified at the same time. I believe that training workshops and constructive feedback are essential to growth, so I'm going to embarrass you a little bit here, Kev. So I'm emailing you to mention that Mullins has set his workshop. Now even he's calling you Mullins now. It's like he's married to you. Mullins has set his workshops to 50% off at the moment, as I'm not sure this has been mentioned on the podcast. No, we haven't. That's one thing we aren't on this podcast. We're not overtly commercial about our stuff. You might find that we start to mention bits a bit more often here and there. But generally, no, we're not. I don't think we have. We don't start every show with 7 minutes of adverts, do we?
No. So I did a portfolio review with Jeff once.
Did you? How did that go?
years and years and years ago. Yeah, it was good actually. It was, it was typical Jeff approach to things. Wasn't a whole load of positivity in it, but it was very good in terms of, really kind of looking at the images and understanding elements of it that, where the pictures fell down. I take a slightly different approach to the way that I do things, but either way, I think it's really good to get your work looked at by other people.
I always think of the portfolio review, because that's happened a couple of times at ex-weddings, and I'm always, you're great at portfolio reviews. I'm not. I know what I like in a picture, but it's a subjectivity thing that gets me. I'm not very good at because it is subjective, isn't it? It's very subjective.
Well, to do a good portfolio review, you mustn't look at the image in terms of taste.
Right.
So you mustn't look at it in terms of whether you like it or not, because that's not really the point of it. The point is, having a review, because it could well be a portfolio review of those seaside shots. When the water goes milky.
Your favourite, yeah.
But I would never look at one of those and base my opinion. If somebody was asking my opinion of it based on the fact that I do not like that style of photography. Yeah. That's not how you should do a portfolio review, in my opinion. Well,
he says he's going to, by the way, he's doing this portfolio review with Jeff, and he's coming back to you for a Lightroom workshop, workflow workshop. So expect a message from James Sawes. Also, another question. I want to buy a microphone to do voiceovers on YouTube videos, video calls and stuff like that to see me across the next 3 or 4 years if I decide to move into photo and video. See, there's another photographer here thinking about doing video as well now. I'm torn between Blue Yeti X or a non-USB microphone and the needed kit, something like a Rode NT1A as an example. What are your thoughts on these two paths? When he says the needed kit, of course, what he means is he'll have to come out of his microphone through an interface and then into the computer, because he's using XLR cables coming out. But what one do you use before I make a suggestion here?
I've got the Blue Yeti now in front of me.
Yeah, and that's a good mic, isn't it?
That's not what I would typically use in the studio, though. This is the kind of the roving mic, if you like.
Yeah,
I have an NTG 4 or 5 or something.
Oh, the shotgun mic. When you do your is that what you use for all your voiceover stuff and the YouTube stuff as well? Okay, all right. Oh, so you don't use the Blue Yeti at all?
No.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, that's introduced a new one. Yeah. Well, so you would have to come out of that, wouldn't you? Because it's an XLR cabled microphone that needs phantom power, doesn't it? So what's your interface between that and the computer then?
It doesn't need you can charge it, so it doesn't need phantom power. But it is XLR, so mine goes into a Tascam device, kind of a I don't know what they call those things, that does all of makes your voice sound good and makes you sound very mellifluous. It goes into that. It just records it onto an SD card, and then I put the SD card into the computer.
So you go into the preamp. That's what you're
preamp.
Talking,
that's the word I was looking for. Preamp.
That's another way of doing it. It's a different way of doing it, but it's another way of doing it. And if you want to go direct into your computer, you could think about the Rode NT USB, which I'm very impressed with. It's not too pricey. I think Murray McMillan in the Facebook group has got one of these. Sorry, Murray, you're about to get a few people say, "What do you think of the mic, Murray?" So it might be worth reaching out to Murray to ask him. But Rode NT USB, very, very strong microphone. Everything Rode makes seems to be strong. I think I'm quite a big fan of Rode. No, we're not sponsored by them in any way, shape or form. Wish we were. Right, books. It's a Wednesday, so what book have you got for us, Mullins?
Okay, so today I have a book that I reckon that hardly anybody will have heard of this photographer, although I might be wrong, and I'll be gladly wrong. Her name is Kataki Sheth.
I haven't.
Ever heard of her?
No.
I didn't think you would have. So Kataki Sheth is a Indian photographer. I believe the book I'm going to talk to you about is called Bombay Mix. Great name, isn't it? Bombay Mix.
Brilliant.
Street Photographs by Kataki Sheth. And I think that she's probably, I don't know whether she lives in Bombay or she's from Bombay, but she's certainly Indian anyway. And it's a beautiful book. It's bright yellow covered, square format, all black and white. And it's, as it says, street photographs of Bombay. And they're beautiful, because what I love about photo books like this is there's literally no text. There's an introduction. And there's no text, it's just the pictures. And actually, sometimes you look at the pictures and you think, hold on, is this are these street kids? Are they at a wedding? What's going on? I don't really understand what's going on with the image, or not that I don't understand, but I would quite like to know the context.
The story, yeah.
And so, again, another good thing about some of these books that we have is that at the back she puts a contact sheet in, or the editor has put a contact sheet in. So you can just look at the thumbnails on at the back of the book, and it gives you the title, which is nice. So page 38, for example, Street Wedding, Bakubahi Ki Wadi, 1990.
Right.
Boy in Two Minds. That's a lovely picture as he's just kind of running between two people. Chor Bazaar, 1989. So you have the contact sheets, which gives you the overview at the back, which is really nice. Some of the images are, there's on-camera flash thrown at them, which gives them actually quite a nice dynamic, I think. And I actually just flipped. Each section is separated by a simple page with a quote, and the quote I'm just about to read says, "City that coats the lungs, stiffens the spine, chills the gut with memory." There we go. So the book is Bombay Mix, the street photographs of Bombay by Kitaki Sheth. It is available on Amazon. I have checked. It is ridiculously priced at £9.19.
No way.
Yes, go and get it.
Far cry from the 1,400 quid books that you'd been suggesting during the deep lockdown moments.
Yes, well, I know I got in trouble for that as well.
Yeah.
So, Bombay Mix. And we will, of course, link to that on the show notes of the website. So if you do happen to want to buy it and you do happen to click on the link in our show notes, we will get, well, if it's £9.19, we will get about 3 pence.
3 pence. Well, thank you very much.
You do not pay more.
In advance for the 3 pence. And that's it for today then. Thank you, Kev. Oh, quick mention, because it's always written on my page, and I mean to mention it more regularly. Do not forget there is a FujiCast at 4 page where you post between 4 and 5 o'clock, wherever you are in the world, so it's your 4 and 5, the first thing you see. Has its own page, and there'll be a prize for the person who after the year has posted the most. I've got a feeling that during this particular period a lot of people have been posting a lot more, so do go and see that page. Really, really important. That's it for today. We will see you tomorrow, Kev. Bye-bye.
Indeed, bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Goodbye, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. We're back tomorrow with another show. Well, unless we're fired, we'll talk to you then. Goodbye, sweetheart. Goodbye. Goodbye.